My sisters and brothers, I greet you all with the love and peace of the Lord. I invite you to meditate together with me on the holy word of God of 26th February 2023, the first Lent Sunday. The pivot: tempted and tested and proved. The indicative of our reflection: the Lord Himself was tempted. This fact shows not His weakness but His solidarity with us. Thereby, He also shows us the way to overcome them. The question of temptation is not centered on the number, sequence, or time of temptations. What is most important to note is that Jesus also was subjected to temptation. Hence, temptation is a human reality, part of human life and fragility. To be tempted in itself is not wrong, and we need not feel uneasy or ashamed or guilty as some do. But what to do, how to face it, this is what matters. According to Saint Francis de Sales, there are three phases in every temptation: proposal, entertainment, and consent. The temptations of Jesus would be the model or the sample of temptations. The devil knows how to play with human psychology, the ego. He provokes the false self-pride, challenging, "If you are the Son of God." The three temptations are rather surface level with more basic underlying inclinations. First temptation: change stones into bread and satisfy your hunger. There are two underlying temptations. One is using God-given power or gifts for lesser motives, self-interest, mere material and physical concerns. Second, giving priority to the material and physical over the spiritual. Our task is to confront and overcome the temptations as Jesus did. So, refuse to use God-given talents for lesser gains. Jesus does not use His divine power to satisfy His hunger, to bring out physical satisfaction. He is hungry, and it appears perfectly legitimate to use His power to alleviate His hunger. But Jesus makes discernment among the priorities. He discerns that it is not worth using His higher power for something lower. The second, give priority to the spiritual, that is, Word of God. Man does not live by bread alone. What nourishes a person is not the material but the spiritual. How often and how easily do we use our God-given talents, capacities, and resources for self-interest or wrong ends or lower motives or shallow profits? How many times do we readily give more importance to the physical and material concerns over and above the spiritual? And now the second temptation, throw yourself down from heights and God will send his angels and protect you unharmed. And now the underlying temptations. One is test God. Second is show, display power. And the third is craving for recognition, cheap popularity, seeking self-glory. Jesus confronted these temptations and overcame them. How? Trust God. No making show or display of power. No craving for recognition but humility. Only seeking God's glory. Very often we want and pressure God to act quickly in our favor, to grant us favors. We want him to work wonders and miracles. We want him to intervene immediately and spectacularly. If not, we easily become impatient, dissipated, and also are shaken in our faith. It is not sure whether when people pray, whether it is asking him to do our own will and plans or surrendering to his holy will. How many of our intercessions and petitions are directed mostly to temporal and material benefits and worldly gains? How many of us really pray for growth in holiness and goodness, in virtues and values? How often do we use even the spiritual occasions for self-projection and self-promotion? Third temptation, bow down and worship me, and I will give you power over everything in the world. And now the underlying temptations. The temptation here is to dethrone God from one's heart, from the center of life. The second, to be disloyal to God, the defection. The third, pressure, attraction of material, worldly riches, power, and position. Shortcuts. Jesus was to win, save the world by the way of the cross. Now, how Jesus overcomes these temptations? He ever enthrones God, only God at the center. Nothing can be on the throne, can be at the center, and nothing can replace God on the throne of heart. Only God is the Master and Lord. All worship and all serving and surrender lead to Him alone. And no being dominated or carried away by the worldly allurements and enticements. And the third remedy, no disloyalty and no defection, never failing, ever faithful to God, come what may. Further, no shortcuts for achieving the goal of salvation, but only through the loyal way, the way of the cross. As disciples, we also pass through the same road when we are tempted to dethrone God or to take shortcuts for achieving some good. But in the face of some difficulty or adversity, some testing and trying time for the sake of faith or good, how easily we fail in our patience and perseverance. In the face of some worldly gain and immediate advantage that is clearly contrary to our loyalty to God and Christian values, how fast we succumb to defection without a prick of conscience or justifying our infidelity in the name of human fragility. When assaulted by some self-gratifying temptations, how easily do we yield and indulge in them? In our family life or work life or personal life or social life, in our plans, decisions, and actions, how often do we deny God the central and primary place, but make money or worldly and worldly concerns very central? How often do we compromise on God's ways and values for the sake of some monetary and momentary gains? And now the imperative for our life. The greatness of our faith does not consist in not having temptations at all, but confronting them and overcoming them with trust in God and surrender to Him, following the example of Jesus.